Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to start lecture number 6 on Waiting for Godot, an absurd play written by Samuel Beckett. So we know that there's been discussion or conversation going on between Vladimir and Estragon, our two main characters. Here Vladimir says 1 out of 4 of the other three, two don't mention any thieves at all. And the third says that both of them abused him. If you recall our last lecture, lecture number 5, you will find that there was discussion about certain thieves. And Vladimir started that discussion. So it's the continuity of the same discussion. So see, what does it mean, what Vladimir says? Basically, he's presenting a comparison between 4 accounts. He breaks the information into parts, and that breaking the information into parts shows analytical thinking. He's thinking analytically. He's following reasoning. He's reasoning. But again, the explanation is not fully clear in structure. We don't find clarity. Structure does not give us clear idea, though it is being thought analytically. So we find that the emphasis in on difference between versions. There are different versions which have been presented. Again, the same problem as Trajan says, who? A short question that shows lack of understanding or even lack of interest. He does not want to understand anything. So again, he interrupts the explanation given by Vladimir. Then Vladimir also uses WH, that is what? Instead of clarifying what Vladimir does, he responds with another question. So what happens? Confusion is created. One person is saying who, the other one is saying what. So that response is creating confusion. It is not clarifying anything. Then Estragon says, what's all this about? Abuse who? Again, question. So many questions by Estragon. So he's asking for basic clarification. So what is he talking about? And who abused? Who was abused? And he wants to understand the immediate statement, especially that the end where he says both of them abuse him. So he picks the last part of the conversation and he asks that question. He wants immediate respond. He wants to understand the last point, the last part. So Vladimir says, the savior. He gives a direct answer, and that is very brief, and there is no elaboration. There is no explanation. Who's talking about? He's saying the savior. So again, direct answer without any explanation. So again, we are not clear what's being said. What is he talking about? Who is he talking about? Who's discussing? Estragon, again, one word. Why? He continues questioning. And that continued questioning keeps the focus on simple cause. That why, who abused, why it happened. The reason, he's asking for the reason why it happened. Who did that? So the same, he's basically the WH interrogatives he's using here they are asking about here when he says why. So he's asking about the reason why it happened. Then Vladimir says, because he wouldn't save them. So now we find, after all, at last, Vladimir is providing a reason, a cause, answer to why. But again, the problem is, it is not well explained. He gives certain explanation, but the explanation is limited. Even we don't find proper context of it. Now see what Estragon asks. He says, from hell? So question. So Estragon is filling information. What the explanation is limited. So he is trying to understand that information by his own understanding, by his own perception, the knowledge he has, or maybe the experience, but I think not the experience here. So he's attempting to complete the idea by himself. That is a positive response, or we say that it is a positive ray of hope that now here Australian is trying to understand partially, though it's not understand, he does not understand it completely, but still we have a glimpse that he understands partially. So Vladimir says imbecile from death. So here again the problem comes. Vladimir corrects him sharply, but the word he uses is very, very dangerous, insulting. Moron, imbecile, the person who does not have mind, the person who does not have ability to think critically, analytically. So that insult, when he says imbecile, that insult introduces conflict in tone, and the correction shifts the meaning. When first he uh, insults him, and then he corrects what he is meant to, what he wants to, what he's inclined to say. So we find that the meaning shifts. Estragon says from hell, and he says no, from death. So the meaning is changed. The concept of hell is different. The concept of death is different. Hell doesn't mean death. Then Estragon says, I thought you said hell. So see, Estragon is pointing out inconsistency. He's showing that there is no consistency. It also shows confusion, and it also shows that basically conversation is creating confusion. Basically, if we see what is the main purpose of conversation, the main purpose of conversation is to make things clear. But what is happening here is opposite to the main purpose, objective of conversating with one another. The main purpose, objective of conversation is to clear ideas, to create understanding between two people, among so many people. But here it is doing the opposite. Vladimir says from death, showing certain irritation here. But see, he's repeating idea. He's repeating. So that repetition is emphasizing correction. But again, the problem remains unsolved. What is it that the explanation does not expand? We don't get clear explanation. It is still limited. again, and the limited explanation is continued. We don't find a satisfying, justifying explanation. That explanation rather creates confusion. It creates, it keeps so many questions, still questions not to be answered, the questions which are not answered. Australian says, well, what of it? So Australian dismisses the importance of the point. So what he does, very easily, he reduces its significance, its importance. He gives certain comment, certain question, he asks certain question that completely diminishes the importance of certain idea. Vladimir, then the two of them must have been damned. Vladimir draws a conclusion. He's concluding now. So he's concluding uh, his explanation. So what he is concluding that both of them must have been damned. They must have been they must have they must not have been saved. So that thing shows an attempt at logical reasoning. He's trying to justify ideas with the help of reason that is following certain kind of or some sort of uh, logic, right? Then Australian again questions, and why not? It seems that he is capable of frustrating the other person. He accepts the conclusion without concern, and he shows indifference. Whatever you are saying, I'm not concerned with it. I'm not giving importance to it. I'm not bothering what you are saying. I don't bother. So Vladimir says, but one of the four says that one of the two was saved. So Vladimir is introducing contradiction within the accounts. There have been different narrations about the event, about the story. So he's showing contradiction that the narrative is not same. There are different accounts, which are causing certain kind of confusion even. One account is contradicting the other one. So that thing brings the discussion back to inconsistency. Discussion becomes inconsistent again, loses consistency. Estadian questions, well, they don't agree, and that's all there is to it. For Estragon, the things are very simple. He makes the issue very simple. He simplifies the issue. And he reduces the complexity of all those accounts to mere disagreement. He simply disagrees. He simply disagrees. So Vladimir says, but all four were there, and only one speaks of a thief being saved. Why believe him rather than the others? Now, Vladimir is questioning the reliability. Either whatever is being said, is it reliable? Should we rely it? Should we rely on it? So he is questioning it. He's questioning the reliability. Whatever is being said is true or not. It is trustworthy or not. So his emphasis is on the inconsistency, and that inconsistency raises doubt in our mind. Whatever is being said is correct or not. And whatever, which account is the truth and which one is not. So Australian says, who believes him? So Australian challenges the assumption. He makes the things very simple. Maybe for him, the life is very simple. Thoughts are very simple. So what he does, he challenges the assumption that anyone accepts this version. He says, no, it is not possible. There is a possibility that he is not believed by others. Others are not trusting him. Vladimir says, everybody is the only version they know. Now, again, Vladimir typical style of responding that he is giving or he's answering with a general claim. Usually we find that he generalizes things. He generalizes things. And Vladimir suggests widespread acceptance of a single version, that mostly people have accepted the same idea, the same narrative, the same account. So Astrajan says people are bloody ignorant apes. Look at the language. He's calling them apes, and apes which are ignorant. They are the apes that are not intelligent at all. So again, now Astrajan is also responding with insult. Before that, we saw in the past that Vladimir used uh, insulting words. Now it is Astrajan's turn. So his tone is shifting. There is transformation in his tone. We don't find it before that. So the shifts, that shifts the tone from discussion to judgment. Now, this statement is judgmental. He's calling people bloody ignorant apes. On what basis he is saying that? We don't know. So now he's not discussing, rather, he's judging people. That is the most dangerous thing, that you become judgmental. Then he rises painfully. Now, description you can find, goes limping to extreme left, halts, gazes into distance off with his hand screening his eyes, turns, goes to extreme right, gazes into distance. Vladimir watches him. Then, let me change the page, then goes and picks up the boot, peers into it, drops it hastily. So many actions, abrupt actions we find in this description, right? So basically, now we find that estrogen is moving physically. And we find that physical movement has replaced verbal engagement. Now, instead of verbal communication, what we see that someone is moving physically. We find certain action, we find certain movement at all. Now, so we find that the stage action shows a restlessness and distraction. Then Vladimir is watching him, then what he does, he picks up the boot, he peers into it and drops it hastily. So Vladimir, now what he does, he shifts from abstract discussion to physical action, right? What he does, that he picks up the boot, he peers into it and drops it hastily. So this action mirrors earlier behavior with the boot that shows return to a previous activity. We started a story, we started a play with the boot. So here we will stop. Now see what the themes we have. We are going to discuss here what themes we find. Obviously, themes will find consistency in themes, but you should know the text, what sentences or what statements or what points uh, belong to what theme. So here again, continuity, we find the theme of confusion and inconsistency in explanation. We find confusion and explanation is not consistent. That shows it is shown it is shown through multiple versions that do not agree and the difficulty in clarifying them. Then we also find failure of communication. Vladimir tries to explain, but Estragon repeatedly interrupts, misunderstands, or dismisses the points even. They don't come, their communication is not success. It's a sheer failure. Then again, theme of questioning and doubt, how it exists here. When Vladimir repeats question of why one version is believed over others, it is doubting, it is creating doubt. When he's raising question, when he's asking why, so it is, that is basically creating doubt in the accounts. Then we also find a contrast, simplicity, simplification versus intricacy, complexity. Vladimir analyzes difference while Estragon reduces everything to simple disagreement. He simplifies each and everything, simply disagrees. He does not indulge in deep discussions that require logic, that require reason. He simply bashes you, or he simply diffuses your argument by saying by that I don't agree. Whatever you're saying, I don't agree. So we also find shift from discussion to action. And we find that it is visible, especially at the end last part of this page. First, Estragon stops engaging verbally and moves physically. And then Vladimir turns to the booth. Both of them were talking, but now both are moving, both have shown certain action. So finally, we also find another theme, that is indifference to meaning, that you shows indifference. You damn care what is the meaning. How should we understand it? What should be our understanding? We don't bother. We shows difference to it. So that indifference to meaning is shown when Estragon gives a dismissive responses, and at the end even he insults, right? He uses insulting judgments, not even discussion, but rather he's giving his passing judgment. He has become judgmental and he is showing insult. He's insulting. Then C, techniques. Again, it is the repetition, obviously. So you should remember all the techniques. Number one is fragmented dialogue. And we see in this page, explanation is broken. And how it is broken? Constant interruption by Estragon is breaking the whole explanation. Whole dialogue is made fragmented uh, by Estragon. Then we also find question and answer pattern. They're asking questions, they're answering. One is asking question, the other one is answering. Or the other one is asking question, the first one is answering. So it is, that pattern is present, but that pattern is not stable. Why is it not? Why it is not? Why is it not stable? The answer to that is that whatever the answers are given to those questions do not fully clarify questions. They don't give us clear clarification. So that's why we call it that pattern is though existing, but it is not stable. Then a third technique is repetition. See, from that, you must know the examples from the text when you say a repetition. So that repetition is emphasizing correction without adding depth. There's no depth, but we find that the focus is on correction, on correcting information, on correcting idea. Then we find that tone, there is contrast in tone, right? Vladimir is giving serious explanation, whereas on the other side, we find Astrajan is dismissive, his tone is dismissive, and his responses are showing insult. He's becoming judgmental. Then we also find conflict through language. It is shown in the insult when the word imbecile is used. That word introduces tension. When you call someone imbecile, so what you should expect from him? So Beckett also uses logical reasoning within speech. You find reasoning in communication. And obviously, it is Vladimir that is attempting to form conclusions. He's trying to bring to conclude certain argument. But obviously, there is another person that is named Astrajan. What he does, he undermines his attempts, and how he undermines them, how he undermines his attempts, he undermines them by interrupting, by contradicting, not agreeing. Then reduction technique is also used here, and we find that reduction is done by Astrajan. He simplifies complex discussion into they don't agree. Then there is shift from speech to physical action at the end, and that is very significant. That is very important. Why is it important? Because now action is replacing dialogue. Before that, we find dialogues, words, discussion, incomplete discussion, no actions. Even they are claiming to do certain things, but they are not moving. But here we find that now they are acting, they are doing certain actions. And actions have replaced dialogue. Again, the repeated idea, that is circular structure. Sentence structure is circular, and where it appears when we see that the discussion returns to uncertainty rather than reaching resolution. They are not certain which version is correct. They are not solving it. Rather, they are focusing on uncertainty. That is again leading towards repetition or circular thoughts even, or the structure becomes circular because it is not moving towards end. Now let me analyze it critically, this passage, this whole sentence, sorry, not sentence, the whole page. We see in these dialogues, there is an attempt to construct a clear explanation, but that clear explanation attempt is repeatedly disrupted. We see Vladimir tries to organize information and he tries to draw logical conclusions, but Astrajan, what he does, He breaks his every attempt, he breaks his reasoning. How? Through interruptions, through misunderstandings, and even he simply dismisses what you are saying. I don't agree. Even when clarification is provided, it does not lead to deeper understanding. Even explanation that ever, whatever explanation is given, that does not clear, does not clarify the idea. The clarification is even limited. Where we see that we see when we see that there's repeated confusion between hell and death. Are they same or they are not same? Or the word hell was used or the word death was used. So the conversation moves between explanation and reduction. What Vladimir does, he expands, and what estrogen does, he simplifies the explanation, or he simplifies conversation. So this presents the discussion from developing into a coherent argument. We see that this whole whatever is happening, it is preventing the discussion to develop into a coherent argument, the argument that has unity of ideas, where ideas link one idea links to another idea. So that is the problem. It's not letting it happen. Then we find the questioning of which version to believe introduces doubt, but this doubt is not resolved. It's not clarified. Instead, it is replaced by general statements and insults. Both are not clarifying it. Rather, they are generalizing it. They are getting judgmental. And we see the shift from verbal discussion to physical movement further weakens the exchange, weakens the communication, basically, because attention moves away from ideas to actions. And accumulatively, we see this whole passage shows us a pattern where explanation begins but is continuously broken, and it leaves the discussion incomplete. If you focus on the analysis, because it's continuity, every page has, I'm giving you the lecture following the same pattern. So you will find certain things repeated. So it's best if you make main ideas and list them, and then you can find different examples from the text that become simple. Taking notes will become simple. So let me conclude at the end that this passage is again presenting a fragmented discussion where explanation, questioning, and dismissal, all three occur together. You'll find explanation, you'll find a questioning, you'll find even dismissal of everything. And unfortunately, the whole dialogue does not reach clarity. It remains unclear. Why? Because interruptions and simplifications prevent development. You must remember those ideas in your mind, because you will find simplicity in conclusion. So the movement from speech to action, that is the new thing in this page, in this passage, that we find shift from speech to action. And that shift from speech to action is reinforcing the lack of resolution. And it also leaves the exchange incomplete. Again, conversation is not concluded. So I hope you have understood it. I've tried my best to clarify it to you. If you have any questions, you can ask me, make notes, and we'll meet again, inshallah. Thank you for watching.